TCI is brought to you by Forestry, sire of 42 stakes winners, including 2011 Preakness winner Shackelford.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. I'm John Siegel alongside Ed DeRosa. He's filling in today for Joel Cunningham. Joel's away on honeymoon stuff. You know, when I told him to book his tickets for Jamaica, I meant Jamaica, New York for the Belmont. He decided to go to Jamaica for his honeymoon.
Now he's drinking Mai Tais. Hopefully we'll get him a Belmont Breeze this time next week and look forward to the Belmont Stakes.
Well, we appreciate you coming in today and helping
pleasure.
us out. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about the Belmont, but we're going to do Belmont by the numbers. We're going to talk about the speed ratings and see who we think is the fastest horse in the Belmont and who we think has a chance to upset I'll Have Another in the Triple Crown bid. Let's talk about I'll Have Another first. He's obviously the fastest horse in this race. Eddie's improving in every race. He's gone from a 98 bris to, in the Preakness, he got a 109. Do you think he can improve again and win the Belmont?
Well, that 109 is a pretty fast figure, so any improvement definitely wins this race. I don't see anyone who could run a 110 or more based on what we've seen so far. If he maintains his Preakness form, there's a few who could maybe jump up with the fastest race of their life. If he regresses a little bit, then that casts a wider net, and we're talking about maybe 4 or 5 who are in that picture. But absolutely, at his Derby and Preakness form, he is the best horse in the race.
All right, let's talk about a few contenders that we think have a chance. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little surprised at the first horse we're going to talk about. It's the coach, Wayne Lucas, with Optimizer. You think he's got a chance to win this race? Tell me why you think that.
One thing I like about him is he's kept his form all year. The Arkansas Derby was a disappointment, but the Rebel with the second. And, you know, the Derby and Preakness don't jump out at you. He was off the board. It's not like he was even running late to be a threat to the winner at any point in the race. But I do like that they've been consistent efforts. And with the Belmont Stakes at 1.5 miles, he's a horse I think who can be around, who will handle the distance. English Channel won at 1.5 miles. He needs to improve a little bit, but not too much to be in the number. He's not a big win threat for me, but absolutely looking for someone to fill out the exotics at 20-1, especially since I'll Have Another be 3-5. He's the horse I like the most.
All right, let's move now to a horse. He doesn't have a lot of experience, but he's got a lot of buzz. It's the Baffert-Zayat connection again, not Bodemeister. They're going to bring in Painter, who won an allowance on Preakness Day. Briss gave him a 107 for that performance. There's no speed in this race as it looks right now. You think that they'll put Painter on the front end and try to run wire to wire?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the only way you win this race, only because there is no other speed, too. It's not like there's a Trainerberg in there or Hansen who you think I'll have to duel with and put away. He can absolutely be the speed of this race, so I don't see why they wouldn't go that route. Whether he can be the speed for 1.5 miles and hold out I'll Have Another, I don't think he can do it. And I go to class as much as I go to the numbers with him because he's a horse we've already seen I'll Have Another beat Santa Anita Derby. Obviously, that was 9 weeks ago.
Right.
Horses develop. That was only Painter's second career start. But to me, I'll Have Another has clearly shown he's superior. I think Bodemeister was Zayat's bullet that they fired. This one could get the minor awards, but I don't think he's going to win.
Well, in fairness to Painter, he did fall out of the gate in the Santa Anita Derby. So he did have some excuses in there, but I do agree with you that I'll Have Another was much better that day. Let's move now to a horse that I think is the biggest question mark in the Belmont. It's Union Rags. You know, his Derby was just so disappointing because he didn't get a chance to run. So it's hard to say if he's a caliber horse to run with I'll Have Another. So he's a very big question mark. His speed ratings are slower than I'll Have Another, but what do you think of his chances?
When we talked about I'll Have Another, you asked about development, and with Union Rags, the thing I worry about is he really hasn't developed that much from 2 to 3, and normally these classic type horses do show that jump sometime in the spring, and he hasn't shown it. As great as his debut was and as much trouble as he had in the Florida Derby and Kentucky Derby, it just doesn't seem that he's progressed since he was a 2-year-old, and that concerns me. Now with the 5 weeks off, if Michael Matz found a trigger that gets this horse to jump up again, he's a big threat. And I also like that he makes his big move on the turn, which seems to be a benefit at Belmont Park with as sweeping as those turns are.
Right.
So he's certainly a horse I don't want to discount completely. It's the second or third choice. I'm less bullish on him, but he definitely needs to improve to contend.
Hey, maybe the trigger is his new rider, Johnny V. That could be a pretty good trigger there.
Yeah, and you know, I've seen some comments with people asking, you know, when do we stop blaming the rider? People blame the rider in the Breeders' Cup. Then Julian was a hero when he won in the debut, and then he was the GOAT again in the Florida and Kentucky Derbies. I'm not sure how much of it is the rider versus the horse. we need to see improvement. That's the bottom line.
Well, sometimes you just got to shake it up a little bit. We saw Baffert do this with Looking at Lucky right
exactly
before the
what I thought
Preakness,
of.
and you just have to switch it up sometimes, you know? Not that Julian take anything away from him. He's a great rider. Nobody's disputing that. But maybe Johnny will just shake him up a little bit and have him in a better position. All right, let's move now to who we think has the best chance of upsetting I'll Have Another. We both agree on this. It's Dullahan. Dale Roman's on fire right now. You know, he's training his horse old school. You know, we see him, he just breezed him a mile the other day. What do you think about what Dale's doing with Dullahan?
I love it, and he's even trained with Shackelford, and I think the job Dale did with him to win the Met Mile has been fantastic, and seems like he's a trainer in the zone right now, and if that carries over to the Belmont with Dullahan, he's a huge threat to upset the Triple Crown chance. One thing we're talking about Belmont by numbers, in addition to the speed ratings, there's the pace figures, and one thing interesting to me with Dullahan is he actually runs his fastest pace figure in the middle, which is from the start of the race to the second call, and then the closing is a nice number, but not quite as fast. So he's a horse to me who can definitely do some running earlier. And I agree with sort of the Belmont Stakes bias that you don't want to be a dead closer. And I don't think he will be. I think we'll see him in the mix on the far turn. And if he's good enough, he'll pass I'll Have Another late. I think we're in for another great stretch battle.
All right, well, hopefully they don't have him 9 wide like they did in the Derby as well. That'll be beneficial.
Another jockey change. So
right. We're seeing Kent off of there. Yeah. I'm looking at your top 5, but I'm also looking at the TCI top 5, which is brought to you by Twin Spires. There's only one horse I see different between the two, and that's Alpha. You know, his best speed rating was in the Wood Memorial against Gemologist. What do you think of his chances in here?
Well, with him, I worry about the class again, going back to some of what we discussed earlier. The Wood Memorial certainly hasn't come back to be a productive race, and other chances Alpha's had against Union Rags have not gone well in the Champagne or the Breeders' Cup, so I wonder if he's actually as good as these. On the other hand, you talk about mystery horses with Union Rags. He had some questions going into the Derby, too. He wore front wraps.
Right.
People didn't really know what was going on with his training leading up to the Derby. It seems like things are much more on schedule now. So if Kieran has this one right and thinks he's ready to run his best effort, then that definitely could be good enough. If not to win, then certainly contend for the minor awards. But at half the price of Optimizer, I'll stick with the long shot. But so he rounds out my top 5, and we'll see what happens with JC's top 5.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on and helping us with Belmont by the Numbers.
Pleasure.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We're going to bring back the panel, and we're going to discuss the Belmont Stakes. And let's see if we can get a Triple Crown winner this year.